Yeah, it is 28 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Humidity is 68%. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I am Chamberlain. So,
a lovely morning after the rains of last night. Welcome, one and all. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayla Magwa. And there on your screens, you're looking at Jabi Lake and very interesting parts of the FCT. Very wet today, you know, because I think I come from this axis every morning. It's a very cold morning, you know. Everyone is trying to get used to the fact that the rains have come. And of course, this particular area is where people do a lot of exercise every morning. Wow. People do a lot of things for themselves.
That rain was
this area.
Last night, Skilla.
Yes, it rained into the morning in some parts.
Well,
yes.
The part I'm going through is dry, really.
There was no rain.
And it's not exactly as cold. But yes, it is 28 degrees centigrade. We love the rain.
It'll get to you. It'll get to you guys. It'll get to you guys.
But all the same, the essence is, yeah, it's one of those kind of mornings you expect. Pretty calm and nice. But being the day after the tariff hike, I don't know how you're feeling right now where you are. If you're on band A, for instance. But all the same, we'll have to do what we have to do, I guess.
I think many residents of the FCT were a little shocked when they started seeing those deductions. You know, if you bought electricity maybe a few days ago, you know, you're probably used to seeing that.
Yeah. We'll come to that.
It'll
Are you
drop
on the wings?
by today.
Did I feel the same thing?
Well, I was looking for the lake. Well, this is the lake. I was looking for a dam on this lake, guys. I can't see anything. Maybe that's why you had such a heavy rain.
It's not, Ayo.
Of course, I'm aware. Well, good morning. It's a beautiful part of your city, no doubt about it. But there is something happening in Lagos today. I mean, this has been in the news for a while. Third Mainland Bridge is going to be open, all full blast to users today, April 4. That's the announcement that the federal government had made over time. And this is a night view of the Third Mainland Bridge. So no more fears. It is now all lit as has been promised, or as was promised by the Minister of Works. This is Lagos. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. What's happening today?
Well, yeah, Ayo, you said it already. The Third Mainland Bridge will be opened today, so that will be happening today, as a matter of fact. So lots of that, what you've seen, is part of what will also go on this morning concerning the happening today. So beyond that Third Mainland Bridge that will open today, the Binance, remember the Binance man who's on the run? Well, there will be the second trap will be arranged today. So there'll be all eyes there. Economic sabotage is part of the charge, and so they'll be asking questions of Binance in terms of what is going to happen. So all of that will be happening today. All right, so right after that, let's take a look at the papers.
Guess what the biggest news in the country today is? We begin with the Guardian newspaper, which leads with 2 million households to pay 225 naira per kilowatt hour as prepaid meter may hit 300,000 naira. The details of that you'll find on the inside pages, but look at the infographic right there. Increases in meter prices between 2013 and 2024. You see the list there, and a number of other things right there. You see that figure, 13.2 million is that of registered customers in the country as of March this year only. Well, the details you'll find on the inside pages and a number of other stories on the front page right there. New Telegraph leads with the same story. New electricity tariff, 1.8 million. That's 15% of 12 million users to pay 225 naira per kilowatts from 66 naira. It has a rider as FG hikes rate, reduces feeders from 800 to under 500 for Band A customers who enjoy 20-hour power supply daily. Discourse yet to be notified. TUC kicks, says planned hike, recipe for industrial unrest. PRP says it's cruel blow to Nigerians. Blackout, UCH workers suspend night shift over 495 million naira IBEDC debt. Details of all of that story you'll find on pages 2, 4, and 5 this morning. And of course, at the bottom of that page, you see that story as well. CBN changed duty rate for goods clearance 28 times in 3 months. That's ascribed to Adeniyi. You may wonder who that is. The details you find on page 8 of New Telegraph this morning. Daily Times newspaper is next. Subsidy regime. NERC increases electricity tariff for Band A customers, says review to affect only 15% customer population. To save FG 1.14 trillion naira in 2024 fiscal year. Shareholders decry electricity tariff hike. Details on the inside pages. Switch to the Leadership newspaper. New tariff. Band A homes may spend 170,000 naira on electricity monthly. That story is on page 4. Labor, businesses groan. Manufacturers mull own power generation plan. You'll find the details of that. Of course, some infographic on the front page to give you some further idea of what the story is about. Look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Electricity concerns as tariff hike hits customers. It's recipe for unrest, ascribed to TUC. Poverty rate will worsen, according to economists. It will not address fundamental energy issues, as ascribed to Muda Yusuf. Details of that you'll find on page 20. Now, there's the latest on the Okwama community story, why residents of Okwama community can't access their homes, as according to the Chief of Defense Staff. Details of that you'll find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Daily Independent has this on its front page. Outrage greets FG's more than 300% electricity tariff hike. Find details of that story on the front page. It continues on the inside pages. At the bottom of that page, CSO's back setup asked governors to account for 5.9 trillion naira and $4.6 billion loans. Details continue on the inside pages of the paper this morning. This Nigeria newspaper is also talking about electricity tariff hike. It's electric shock for us. Nigerians lament. Look at the riders. Band A customers to pay 225 naira for kilowatts per hour as against 66 naira. Let Nigerians breathe. We can't add this to current hardship. Who said that? This is on the inside pages. Increase will electrocute human lives. Well, some play of words on the front page of this Nigeria Today. As I subscribe to Shehu Sonny, details of that story you find on page 4 of the paper this morning. Daily Trust newspaper has its own angle to that same story this morning. NLC CSOs reject electricity tariff hike. Expect power theft. Ex-NERC chair says, hike in gas price, Naira crisis behind decision, as ascribed to regulators. The details of that story you find on the inside pages of Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Nigeria News Direct, some kind of explainer. New tariff to reduce electricity subsidy by 1.14 trillion naira. The story is ascribed to NERC. That's the angle of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Cities increase in infrastructure investments as reason for hike in electricity tariff. Downgrades 300 feeders for failing to supply 20 hours of electricity. Mandates discourse to migrate more customers to Band A. That story, details of it, is on page 4. Now, look at the front page of Blueprint newspaper this morning. Q1 2024, Customs nets 1.34 trillion naira revenue, seizes 10.59 billion naira goods. Whoa. The figure represents 122.35% increase same period 2023. Reopening our borders with Niger will boost activities. That story is described to Adeniyi. Find the details of that on the inside pages. At the bottom of that page, there's the story to that picture with student loan law, no child will be excluded from quality education. I subscribe to Tinubu. Details of that on the inside pages. It continues on the inside pages. And with the blueprint, we close a look at some of the dailies this morning. Which one is your own outstanding take? Let's hear from you.
Yeah, this morning. But if you look at the Guardian newspaper, yeah, they equally focus on that and give you a breakdown, which is part of what we'll highlight here this morning. But some equally interesting stories, other than that lead story here. Abure reportedly escaping assassination, his home being gutted. So you just tend to wonder, there appears to be a lot more than what has been going on. The tussle for the chairmanship of political parties. So you just wonder, what is going on? You thought that they ought to have their acts together and ensure that they set example for other political parties. But if this is going on, wow, just wow. But also on that same front page, man nabbed over alleged abduction of housewife for sexual pleasure in Osun. So thankfully, men of Amotekun were said to have caught up with the man in question. He's said to have used what they call a magic ring to abduct the married woman. So after dropping her, he tried to escape, and then somehow the woman raised an alarm, and that's why you get to hear of this kind of matter. So you need to know, when you see something, you need to say something, because this was completely odd. And they say he abducted the woman for 3 weeks. Wow. On that's really never ceased. Front page of Guardian for you guys today.
Speaking of other stories, apart from the major story, which has to do with this electricity hike, from the New Telegraph, there's one from the CBN. The CBN changed duty rate for goods clearance 28 times in 3 months, according to Adeni. More on that from page 8 of the New Telegraph. And then, of course, we've been talking since yesterday about, how much customs has made in the time frame. And, everyone is talking about how much these agencies are making for the country. So they talked about how much they had made in the first quarter of 2024. So there, from the New Telegraph. And then, of course, with the Daily Trust newspaper, another headline that really caught my eye there, banditry, 289,375 persons displaced in Kaduna. And that more on that from page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Very worrisome situation, and one that needs to be addressed as quick as possible so that we do not spiral into a situation that we cannot control. These are going to be people, these are people's lives, these are Nigerians, and it's going to impact on the fabric of our country. 289,000 people, that's a lot of people who are victims of this banditry. So something needs to be done about it immediately.
Well, that's quite a significant one to highlight. But the one that actually gets to me is one of the things that people have said is a solution to this whole talk about insecurity. Education, eradicate poverty, and give people education, and insecurity is going out the window. That's one of the stories also making the rounds this morning. It's just that the electricity story seems to have taken the shine off of it. On most of front pages of most of the papers today, as you will find on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper, you'll find that the president was signing a document, and right under the picture on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper is the story. And it says, with student loan law, no child will be excluded from quality education. That's ascribed to the president. So thankfully that is out there. But then what is the minimum threshold? I think that's one other issue that we need to be interested in. Those who go to school, we know the things that happen to them in most parts of it, particularly in the north. Abductions straight from school, and in their hundreds. So how does this student loan help to ensure that after I've collected the loan, I can actually go to school unhindered, without any fear, and then I'll be able to come out in good enough time to begin to pay back the loans that I have collected to go to school. So that is one thing that I think we'll also need to interrogate. So the law is out, the president has signed it. Hopefully implementation will begin real soon. But then how about those who go to school and get abducted from their schools. I hope it is something that the federal government and the state governments are also looking into. And then what's the assurance that when I come out of school, in fact, the education that I have gotten will help me to get a good enough job? It is in this same country that the Minister of the Federal Republic said that the graduates that we produce from our universities, they are not employable. I hope that this has also been factored in by the Minister of Education and everyone in that sector to ensure that they are not only employable, they will be able to pay back the loans that they get. Anyone should be able to get quality education in school. That's the president's pronouncement according to the law. I hope all governors also agree, and all local government chairmen will also partner with the federal government in that. That's my take on the story, Chairman.
That's an ever-going debate as to the capacity, functionality of the local government and what they need to do. But yeah, I mean, we need to highlight this to ensure that things work, don't we? Okay, so there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
The journey to success is not always smooth. There are rough patches on the path to accomplishment. The struggle continues until solution appears that launches you to the world of your dreams, protecting, securing, and ensuring that you reach your goals. At International Energy Insurance, we know that the journey to actualizing your dreams could be tough, but we are always there to support you and help you prepare for the unexpected. International Energy Insurance is a Nuremberger company now positioned to serve you better. International Energy Insurance PLC. Energy to care.
Senior executives face local macroeconomic turbulence and global geopolitical upheavals. Don't worry, Texam UK got your back. A transformative journey with Texam Strategies for Sustainable Organizational Success Program. April 24 to 25, 2024 in Lagos will position you and your organization for these challenges. Our interactive sessions, games, assessments, and peer-to-peer learning are unique with a great faculty led by John Peters, former chair, Association of MBAs and ex-prisoner of war, delivering actionable insights for you to navigate uncertainties and thrive. Pay 3,155,250 Naira by March 15th for your spot and enrich your leadership skills in resilience, innovation, and sustainable growth. Apply now via +44 7425 883 791 or exec@texam.co.uk. It's a strategic opportunity to win. Texam, insights that inspire, actions that change the world.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
In the last 4 years, the federal government has increased electricity tariff 3 times. That's in 2020, 2022, and 2024. In 2022, the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari approved electricity tariffs increase, which took effect from February 2022. The document from the regulatory body mandated that customers who bought power at 50.72 naira per kilowatt hour in January 2022 pay 54.22 naira per kilowatt hour from February 2022. 11 electricity distribution companies, discourse, were given the approval. News agency Reuters quoted the Special Advisor on Information and Strategy to President Bola Tinubu, Bayo Onanuga, on Tuesday, April the 2nd, saying that the federal government plans to remove electricity subsidy for 15% of consumers to save the nation about 1.1 trillion naira annually. That decision has become a reality.
Part of our regular media.
The regulator claimed that the decision was necessary considering the price of gas, inflation, exchange rate, and available generation capacity before increasing the tariff. At the press conference in Abuja, the vice chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission made the announcement of the increase with reasons.
The April supplementary order takes effect from today, and in that order, the Commission has approved a rate review of 225 naira per kilowatt hour for just under 15% of the customer population in NERC. So that means that less than 15% of the customers will be affected.
He adds that the Commission has downgraded some customers on the Band A to Band B due to the non-fulfillment of required hours of electricity provided by the distribution companies.
The Commission has decided that many of the feeders that the discourse currently brandished as Band A are not meeting the Band A service. And as such, the feeders are being ordered to be downgraded immediately as a way of protecting consumers.
The NERC service-based tariff scheme, introduced on the 1st of November 2020, classifies consumers based on the number of hours of electricity supply per day. And that includes Band A, minimum of 20 hours, Band B, minimum of 16 hours, Band C, minimum of 12 hours, Band D, minimum of 8 hours, and Band E, minimum of 4 hours. As the new tariff takes effect immediately, the electricity regulatory body says this review does not affect customers on the other bands. Many are, however, watching to see if that would be possible. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
All right, yes, indeed. So we're kicking off the program with that conversation. We've got Yusuf Ali here with us. He is the Commissioner, Planning, Research and Strategy for NERC. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Nice to be here.
I know you have heard how angry people are about this increase, in spite of all that the NERC may have said, that they just will not have it. What goes through your mind when you hear that?
Good morning, fellow Nigerians. I think it's unfortunate that, but also understandable, the circumstances facing Nigerians. I think the current review is seen as part of a swift of reforms that are not so easy to accommodate. Now, what I would want to start by saying, and I think I was highlighted in your introduction, is that this this tariff review is focused on only 15% of the customer base. Now, the reason why
you say only, as if it's insignificant.
No, it is not insignificant, actually. I mean, it's about 1.8 million households out of about 12 million that we have connected to the electricity grid. But what I would say...
Out of about 200 million Nigerians.
Yes. I mean, there's an energy access issue, which we can discuss in a different segment. But I think what I would say is the difficulty on the government is very clear, right? The cost of producing electricity is always going to be there. The only question you have to ask yourself at any point is who pays the bills. And I think if I have a moment, I can just sort of take us through a bit of history on this, because I also heard during the opening segment that there was a comment made around 3 reviews in the last 4 years or something. That is indeed correct. But I will tell you that anywhere around the world, 3 reviews in 4 years, considering the scale of the macroeconomic changes we've had in our own economy, doesn't go anywhere near enough. So for way of context, before yesterday, we were operating a tariff that was determined in December 2022, okay? Now, I'll just choose one parameter that I think sort of encapsulates the big issue that we're facing, issue of gas price, okay? The gas price for the power sector is indexed to the dollar. So in December of 2022, when the tariff was set, the gas was set at $2.18 per MMBTU, right? In Naira terms, that worked out to be about 930 Naira for every unit of gas that you supply. As of yesterday, when you take into the fact that the gas price was slightly increased by about 11% recently, and the FX situation, that same molecule of gas is now costing 3,500 Naira. Now, we have a decision to make. If the thing costs this amount, as a commission, I always say we're in the middle of a very interesting triangle, in that there is the consumers who are there to be protected by us. There's the government who is aligned with the consumers to ensure that things are not too hard on them. But then we have the investors who are the people that put their money in.
So, yeah, we heard part of what you said. But, you know, first of all, after that press conference, you said it takes immediate effect and people go to their homes. Some know nothing whatsoever because those deductions already immediately happened. Is this supposed to be the procedure? I thought there's supposed to be notice out there for all of these things before the increase kicks in. But this took immediate effect after the press conference.
Yes, it took immediate effect. And I think that is consistent with the provisions of our business rules with regards to this type of review. If you look at the order that was issued yesterday, it was called a supplementary order to the MITO 2024 order, which we issued in January. Now, there are 3 types of reviews that we do, okay? And each of the reviews have different procedures to how you go about them. We have what we call the minor reviews, which is what we did yesterday. Minor reviews...
Wait. The increase, which is over 200%, was a minor review?
I'll explain to you. I'll explain to you, don't worry. I'll explain to you. So there is minor reviews, which is just month on month. We say, okay, dollar used to be 1,003. It's now 1,002. We'll go and adjust the model and come up with new numbers to determine the cost reflective tariff, okay? So those ones, by our business rules, we do not require any consultation with consumers on minor reviews. Then we have major reviews, which are scheduled to happen once every 5 years. And for major reviews, we are required to go and have stakeholder engagement with the people to get their input in determining the tariff. Then we have what we call extraordinary review. Extraordinary review is a review that is called in between a 5-year period if there has been a significant change in circumstance. Our licensees, in this case the discourse, they have a right to appeal to us. So that happened in July of last year. They wrote to us and said we want a new tariff because dollar has changed and so on and so forth. What we then did was that for a week in the whole of July of last year, we held rate case hearings, which is in line with international best practice, whereby we invite, consumers to come and the discourse will be put on the spot. You said you want a tariff of 10 Naira. Tell us what the components.
The consumers are the ones on the spot right now, because, how is it that you say this is a minor review and you just, as you also did say, corroborating 3 reviews in 4 years,
yeah.
And then this happens, and it still comes up. You still say this is a minor review.
So the reason
the thing about that is that, whatever policy or laws that exist out there is supposed to have a human face. Yeah. The consumers at this point in time should have some sort of time to get themselves. Okay, look, how do we adjust to this? And then, but when you say immediate effect in this economy, that is very harsh on the consumers.
So, okay, you make a good point. Now, what I would say is, in terms of why I call it a minor review, so the major review that came out of the activity of July of last year, the outcome was issued in an order that we issued on the 1st of January or so of this year. So that major review, if you go and check our records now, this year we've issued 3 orders, 3 different rounds of tariff orders, one for January, one for February, and the one we issued in April. Now, the reason why this is catching...
No, but those reviews, I thought you people said, no, don't perish that thought. It's not going to happen. Don't implement it. So in the mindset of the consumers, that was ground zero. They didn't consider anything that's happened. But you're counting it as though that still subsists.
No, so the point is, what is important is that when you go and check the order, that we issued in January, we were, for the first time, and in an effort to increase transparency, what we did was that we said, this is the cost-reflective tariff. I think it was about 200 naira on average. We said, then we now put under column, this is the allowed tariff. Because at that point, we had gotten policy signals from the government that there should be a freeze on the customer bills. Now, the change that has happened in this April review, the only thing that has happened is that government has said the subsidy we're willing to pay, our appetite is reduced. So design a tariff regime with the distribution companies that will save us 1.14 trillion. And I think it's important to highlight that number because, as you know very well, the federal budget for this year is 27 trillion. If you do 1.14 of 27, that's over 4%.
Dr. Yusuf, you know, when you speak about these things as though, you know, you want to stick with the books and the numbers, we know in this same country, when the petroleum industry bill or act, when it became a law, the former president suspended the part where they needed to implement removal of subsidy. He had every right to implement it, but he suspended it because he wanted the human face.
Yes.
So humans made the law. You had to humanize some of these laws. But in this case, you're saying, oh, no, we have to stick to some of these things. I'm saying in this circumstance, there would have been absolutely nothing wrong if we had said, okay, you know what, this is going to be harsh on the people. Let's give that notice. Yes, it's still going to come, but look, this is what's going to come so that people can prepare themselves financially and otherwise for this. That didn't happen. This comes in and it takes immediate effect. I don't know how NERC gets feedback from the people, but anyone who you ask, they are pissed off with this.
I mean,
at the way NERC is implementing this.
Yes, I mean, in addition to my work at NERC, I'm also a consumer, right? And I have family. Even if I'm shielded, I have family, right? And the reality is, indeed, there is some pain that comes with adjustment. But the reality also is that you are very familiar with the Nigerian landscape. So, for example, Nigeria is very unique in the sense that it's probably one of the few countries that has the highest level of prepaid metering around the world, okay? So in most countries in the world, all utilities, water, electricity, they are handled as postpaid services, in which case you consume, somebody comes to read your meter, and they issue the bill. Now, because of the energy theft and some of the challenges that we have on the commercial side, we have gone in the prepaid approach. The challenge with, let me just finish. The challenge is if you notify people ahead of time, right? If they go
as your law requires.
No. The minor review doesn't. But if you give too much of a head start.
If you're going to notify people about increase in tariff, your law says at some point you have to notify people.
Which is what we did yesterday.
No, there was no notification. No,
the order is the notification.
That wasn't a
That's the instrument of notification.
No,
but let me just quickly explain on the issue of prepaid meters. The issue is the bills for electricity consumed in April, for example, will only become mature for the discos in May and June. Okay, that's when they will have to collect the money and pay the suppliers of electricity. The challenge is if you allow with a notice period, customers go and bulk vend at a different rate. So, for example, now, if people said, okay, if you told them, okay, this will be effective end of April, okay? What people will go and do is that people that normally buy only 20 units for 1 month, they will say, the tariff is about to go high. They'll go and borrow money. They'll go and buy more electricity that will cover them April, May, June.
You see why people say this is punitive? Because even if they buy that, the same thing happens with fuel. You will still exhaust it and come back and do it, and you still make your money.
No, but in real time, when the disco has to pay the bill for May.
So you see why they say this is targeted at making sure you grab the money from this less than 15 people, and then that's the way it's coming across to people.
But you know what's interesting? So I have some interesting data for you. Out of the 1.5 million, about 1.8 million customers that are affected by this, right? 75% of the energy that will be consumed by that band, okay? The energy consumed, not the customer numbers, by the energy consumed is going to the industries. Now, I also noted when you were doing the paper reviews that there were a lot of people saying, oh, this is bad for industry, we'll shut down and so on and so forth. I think it's always important that we never analyze issues in a vacuum. In anything, there's opportunity cost and the alternatives. For industry today, the alternative, if they don't get grid power, is that they should go and do diesel generator or CNG. If you do diesel generator today, the per unit cost for diesel generator today is an ironic 419.
Dr. Yusuf, let's not even go there because you don't know how people get whatever they get, alternative power supply. Some people do it for others. It's not everybody that goes and chalks out that money and gets it. It's a choice. For this, you're compelling people So there are two different things.
No, you have a choice.
In what? For
volume of energy you consume.
For this band A bits?
Yes, but
who has the choice? Those in band A?
No, even me, in my house, we had a meeting with my family that considering these new rates...
That are not being band A anymore?
No.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
That's the point. If you had given the time, people would be able to have those kinds of conversations in their houses and be able to plan further. But I want you to be able to talk with you.
No, he's denied that he had time to plan.
You had time to have a meeting with your household. We woke up to the thing. I want to be able to talk with you.
From yesterday, I had the meeting.
I want to be able to talk with you to explain a lot of things for us, okay? So how do I know if I'm a Band A customer?
Okay. So I think...
Just make it brief, yes.
In the first instance, if you go and check your bills or any vending that you've done in the last few months, or the bill that you have paid for postpaid customers, usually there's a requirement from the commission.
Most people are prepaid.
So if you go and check your vending, it will tell you, okay, you're on this feeder and you're a Band A customer. Now, I would note that, and I think Chamberlain mentioned it earlier, there has been a downgrade of many feeders that cannot provide 20 hours.
Okay.
So in reaching the feeders that are eligible for this review, we did a holistic analysis of people that have been getting 20 hours or not. And prior to this, we had about 875
As a consumer who's listening to you right now, I know you want to give me figures now.
Yeah.
As a consumer who's listening, how can I check whether I've been downgraded from Band A to Band B so I can rest easy?
Okay, so the first thing you can do is that the order is on our website. So if you go and check your feeder from your receipt, you can sort of triangulate that.
Okay.
Second level that we're trying to make life easier is by the end of today on our website, there will be a dedicated link where you can just go and check under your disco, your feeder number, your feeder name, and see.
That's
and then lastly...
NERC website.
NERC website.
Okay.
And we'll publish it on social media. Yes. And then the last thing we'll do is that from tomorrow, if you just go on our website, if you enter your account number, it will basically tell you, there'll be, it's like a search. It will tell you, yes, you are a Band A customer, tariff, review, effective.
So if I find out I'm a Band A customer, how much, what are we talking about? So let's say I spend 40,000 Naira on electricity every month.
Yes.
How much am I going to have to spend now? Do I multiply? Because if it's increased from 68 to 200, do I just multiply my 40,000 by 3?
If your consumption stays flat, that would be the case. But the reality of human behavior is that we're very adaptable.
So basically, everyone who's a Band A customer should know that from now on, I'm spending ×3 of what I'm spending right now.
No, the energy cost ×3. You can adjust your own consumption to manage within your budget.
Okay, yes, I can adjust my consumption.
Totally.
But let's say I want to keep my consumption as is.
Yes, so it's about 235% increase.
Okay, so I should just plan like that. I should know that that's what my reality is now.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. Now, in the agreement that you have with Gencos, I need to understand that. Something about making profit, being able to recoup their money from the monies that people are paying in. I'm trying to get that understand. Help me understand what that means, because that's one of the reasons why this has happened.
Correct. So the section 116, subsection 2A of the Electricity Act 2023 is very clear that the Commission has a mandate to determine tariffs that allow operators. So this is across the value chain. So there's generation, transmission, and distribution.
Yes. For
those stakeholders to do, I think, 3 things. First thing is recover any capex investments that you have made. So I take money from my account, $10 million. I buy a plant. I need to recover that money.
And how long does it take for this?
No, there's an amortization schedule, right? So typically, power infrastructure are long-term assets. So I'll say 30 years or so. So we amortize about 30 years.
So 30 years?
Thereabouts.
Okay.
So that's one element of the cost. Second element of the cost is OPEX. So for example, I have staff, I have vehicles, I have and so on and so forth. I need to recover those costs. And those ones are real time. There's no amortization. If I incur a cost this year, I need to earn the money this year. And then you have what you call return on investment, right? People are not participating in this business as charity, right? So we have a responsibility of a fair rate of return, right? So we determine what is the cost of capital, right? Cost of equity, and so on. And then we determine what is a fair rate of return. So those are the things that we consider in determining the revenue requirements of the different licensees.
Being unable to meet this costing was what, in many ways, I'm trying to understand from the commissioner, was what in many ways led to the downgrade in power supply, because power supply has been pretty poor since December. Correct.
So I think, I was talking to a senior government executive a while back, and I said the fact that we have power the way we have it today is a bit of a miracle. And I'll tell you why. If you check the records that are publicly available, the level of remittance, so remittance is the percentage of payment relative to the invoice issued, that the Gencos have been getting over the past few months has been very, very troubling. I mean, we're talking about remittances that are hovering around 20%. Now, I ask you, tell me anybody that you know that will give you 100 units of something, okay? You pay for 20 one time. The person says, okay, no problem. I'll give you 100 again. You pay for 20 again.
Who is this? Is it not government officials that don't pay for their electricity? Not the private sector. Private sector pay for their electricity. It's not private sector. It's government.
A combination of both. It's a combination of both.
Government is the guilty party who don't pay. Didn't Asoro recently just pay how many years of electricity they didn't pay?
Government is partly culpable.
So it's government. So if it's a miracle, it should be a miracle for government folks, not private folks who are working hard and paying.
But the thing is, I know you're a consumer, right? And I think, I'm a consumer as well. The thing is, you'll be surprised sometimes when you hear stories of energy theft, meter bypass, and so on and so forth.
So, there are some meter people who have said, look, all of these challenges you face, they can easily be addressed.
Yes.
They can meter their transformers. They have several layers to ensure that this is done. But it's not being done by discourse. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to also ask you, when you talk about this miracle and what's going on, I'm reading several people who say, look, I'm supposed to be in the so-called band A. I don't even get close to 20 hours. And I know the NERC launched the Charter of Service Agreement, wherein if those companies or discourse don't provide up to 20 hours, there are supposed to be sanctions.
Yes.
But could you tell us, has there been any discourse whatsoever who's been sanctioned for not providing 20 hours? And secondly, does NERC even have the capacity to know how much this discourse has applied to who?
Correct. So I think on the issue of discourse being sanctioned for not meeting service requirements, there are some cases that has been done. So I think, off the top of my head, I recall JOS, disco, and so on. But I also need to provide some clarification, okay? A disco is just one part of the value chain. A disco is basically the last mile. What happens is, Egbe power plant, for example, needs to generate power. TCN needs to carry the power from Eko, Lagos State, and find its way to Abuja. And then Abuja Disco will now do the last mile to bring it to my and your house. Now, what has happened is that the premise of the service-based tariff in the first design, right, assumed, I think, about 5,000 megawatt hours per hour, right? So an average of 5,000 megawatts being available. The challenge is, once the generation is not available, okay, you cannot hold a disco culpable for not delivery of service. Because the 5,000 was the basis for which we designed that they should give A, this amount, B, this amount. But in cases where, Chamberlain, cases where we found that energy adequacy is not a problem, but the disco has failed in its responsibility, we have proceeded to give them sanctions. But let me now bring us to this current order.
Because that sounds like you're making an excuse for those discos. Because the charter says if the consumer doesn't get it, whatever happens, because they don't care how you get your money, you must pay for it.
What kind of sanctions?
So the sanctions typically, they're in form of like energy credits. So for example, the order says if a band A customer doesn't get a band B service over a course of a month, there's X number of units. I don't have the precise numbers here. So the customer is supposed to receive those units for free from the disco as compensation.
I've never received that.
Has this ever happened?
In my life, as a so-called
as a Nigerian.
I have never seen it.
Never.
No. So the thing is, I can share
Maybe
facts.
it happens without us knowing. Maybe
because you're only getting the service. Maybe you're getting the service.
Do we have to request for it, or it's just...
No. We're supposed to have an autonomous mechanism to ensure enforcement. But I think let's bring us back to this. And I think, when you want to go forward sometimes, you learn from the past, but you can't be a victim of your past, right? The way I look at it is, the current order has 3 clear provisions that try to resolve this problem. The first one is that on a day-by-day basis, so by 10 a.m. today, if you check the social media and the website of all the discos, you will see the service delivery performance for all the band A feeders. So increasing that level of transparency to consumers. Now, but the order also mandates the discos that if in any instance, 2 consecutive days, you do not provide the 20-hour service, you have to issue a public explanation as to the root cause of the problem.
And where that doesn't happen?
Where that doesn't happen, we will intervene. The thing is... So
they owe us a tweet?
A tweet and explanation, but not even that. If there's not 7 days where they do not give you the service, 7 days in a row, you are automatically downgraded. So that there's no instance of you, being subject to a higher tariff for service that you're not receiving. And then over the course of 1 month, when we do the average service delivery for 1 month, if they fall below the threshold, in addition to a downgrade, you receive this energy credit I spoke about.
What about this grid that keeps collapsing?
So the grid collapse, typically...
How does it tie into this whole matter?
So grid collapse is just a symptom of a greater disease. Okay? Electricity is a very technical service to deliver, right? It has very tight parameters. Without getting too technical, right? There is a voltage that should be at, and there's a frequency that should operate at, okay? What happens is, anytime generation goes significantly...
Yeah, we understand what it means when the grid collapses, but
yes.
maybe we'll circle back to that. I think Ayo...
Yeah, before that, I mean, who has ever received these credits you've been speaking about?
The thing is, I'll furnish you with information, and I hope that when I send it to you, you publish it for your audience.
No, tell them now, let them know.
The thing is, I mean, I don't have the list, but I'm telling you at least 3 or 4 discourse.
Maybe 1 or 2 areas that has ever received it.
Areas I don't know, but I know for as a matter of fact, just disco. At some point, I believe in 2021, when they were getting adequate energy from the grid.
It's still on the national grid.
Just the national grid. Just disco. There's a NERC, which is a small, hydro operation in Plateau State. Okay. But just disco exists. Okay. And what we'll do as a commission, when I get back, generally you get the details, and I'm pleading with you that when you get it, you must share.
Look, I prefer you tell them yourselves so that if anything...
I mean, we can publish it on our website as well. We can also
publish it. You can send it, but so that we can see it, because this credit sounds utopian to us, because many have never seen it. They're just hearing about it from you.
No. The customers, maybe we would get you customers from Just that can be testimonials for receiving the energy credits.
Abuja hasn't received it. Lagos hasn't. Commercial centers haven't. Several areas haven't. Well, I think my colleague, he's in Lagos. There you go. So let's see what he's feeling at the moment.
Well, I'm going to stick with that conversation, Chamberlain. Just how, Mr. Ali, do you monitor compliance of the discourse? How is it measured?
In the simplest form, the service-based tariff is based on feeders. Right, so a feeder is basically like a 11 kV line that supplies many households, okay? So each of those feeders have meters. Now, the commission has mandated the distribution companies to install smart meters on these 11 kV feeders, okay? So what those smart meters do is that they can be remotely read. So every hour, or every cycle, in some cases 15 minutes, in some cases 30 minutes, and in the worst case 1 hour, the meter would read its data to what is called a meter data management system, MDMS, which will say, okay, in the hour of 9 a.m. this morning, the energy on the transformer is this amount, the power X amount, and so on and so forth. So we have access, remote access, using APIs to those MDMS systems. So we can definitely see that if a feeder has a 0 reading for any hour, that means that there was no supply for the customers on that feeder. And that's how we measure the compliance for service delivery for consumers.
Well, Mr. Ali, there are those who would think right now that those who pay their electricity bills, whether prepaid or postpaid, are the ones being sanctioned for being good Nigerians. There are those Nigerians who are unmetered and do not have access to electricity, and you would help us to understand, or to at least have an idea of how many people are not metered in Nigeria at this moment. And if you also have the data, give us an idea, because we heard this from the former Minister of Power, Mr. Fashola, saying that there is a huge level of electricity theft. Those people who do not pay for this electricity, they are the ones that are responsible, some would say, for this hike that those who are complying are having to bear.
Thank you very much, Ayo. So I think on the issue of metering, right, I think we can analyze it from 2 levels. I think as at the last report that the Commission issued for Q4 of 2023, the gross metering rate across the entire sector is hovering around, I would say, about 45%, 50%. So that means that out of the 12 million consumers, you have about 6 million that do not have meters, that are based on, estimated billing in that sense. Now, that is one of the reasons why this realignment of the strategy of the subsidy reform is also important. For the Band A customer group, that metering rate goes up from about 50% national average to about 70 to 75%, right? So reducing the people that are going to be feeling the burden of being unmetered, but still feeling the pinch, I would say, of having to pay what is the cost-reflective tariff, I must emphasize. So that is on the issue of metering. On the issue of energy theft, I think it's good that you raised the point. The reality is the Commission, when you go and talk to distribution companies, you find that they think the Commission stance is too harsh. If you recall, I had mentioned that there was a race case hearing that we held in July of 2023. At that race case hearing, one of the parameters that was on the chopping block, so to speak, the discourse came and requested a revised ATC and C loss. ATC and C is the aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses, right? And basically, it is a parameter that is to cover efficient losses, okay? So when the discourse came to us, they requested an on average about 42 or 43% ATC and C loss, right? What the commission did was we took stakeholder input at the rate case hearings. We did international benchmarking to see what is applicable for identical markets like ours and comparable markets. And we ended up approving an ATC and C loss of about just over a shade over 20%. Now, what this means for the discos is that we're not allowing them transfer their inefficient losses to the paying consumers. And I think it's important to highlight that because, Ayo, you raise a good point. It should not be a sin to be a good customer. And we are ensuring that we're not transferring inefficient losses to those paying customers.
Well, there's this other vexed issue to some people. Electricity is now a concurrent issue in the Constitution. So states should be able to generate their own. And the people in Abia State, a good number of them, are celebrating that they can enjoy 20-hour, maybe even 24-hour power supply now. So states have that authority themselves now to create their own power supply systems and all of that, generate, transmit, and distribute to the people. Tell us exactly what's the interface of the NERC in that? How should that plan or process work, standard practice? How should the states operate their own, seeing that there is a likelihood that there's a likelihood that they would use some of the infrastructure of the users that your own sector, that your organization, your commission regulates?
Okay, thank you very much, Ayo. And I think this is a very important point. And I think you even note in our press release of yesterday, we made reference to our commitment to working with the relevant stakeholders to the successful implementation of the provisions of the Electricity Act, as well as the constitutional amendment that you make reference to. So I think the framework that is being proposed for Nigeria, albeit the fact that it's a bit novel in terms of, around the world, there are only about 7 countries that have this multi-tier regulatory system within the power sector. It is still something that we welcome because we believe it could be very, very useful to improve service delivery. I recall that the Honorable Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adeolabu, always makes the point that electricity is a very local matter. So as much as possible, you want to ensure that the regulatory powers over it are very local. Now, what the Constitution Amendment has translated into is that states have the rights to regulate power supply within their own state boundaries. Now, the way Nigeria is structured, electricity, as I mentioned, the value chain, it cuts across generation, transmission, and distribution. So effectively, what will end up happening is that the states will be regulating the distribution part of the business, meaning that largely generation that is on the national grid and transmission that goes interstate will be regulated by the Commission. So we have done a lot of international best practice learning, right? US, India, and so on and so forth, where they have these regimes. And it's very, very simple. What happens is the Federal Commission, in this case NERC, will regulate transactions that have to do with generation that cross state borders. We'll regulate transmission. So basically what regulation means, we set the rules, and we also regulate transactions. If there's any conflict, set the prices and so on and so forth, we'll work on that. Now for distribution, the customer-facing part of it, the states will have the right. So for example now, I believe we have about 10 applications already with us at the Commission, with states that are saying that they want to exercise their rights for the Constitution to create their regulatory authorities. And I even believe, I think in Enugu State, if I'm not mistaken, they have, sort of like started that. So we are trying to develop a framework called the Forum of Regulators, right? Whereby we work with them collaboratively every time so that we can address issues. The thing is, the technical standards that are required for the sector will largely remain the same. We will not start using a different voltage level because...
Mr. Ali, beg your pardon, Dr. Ali, yeah. My apologies for butting in. While all of that is, sounding very, very copious, how does that affect the price, the kilowatt hour costs of electricity? Will there be a change? Will it be better for people to bear if the power supply is the one supplied from the state or from the local or from the federal government? And then will people be able to switch from one service to the other?
Okay, thank you, Ayo. So I think in terms of affecting the price, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the cost is the cost, unfortunately. Now, how that cost is covered is a policy decision on the part of the government. In this current case, since the federal government is the one overseeing the entire sector, federal government is the one that makes a decision that say, okay, I'm willing to provide subsidy of X amount. And then we'll then, not pass the cost to the consumers. What will happen with the state situation is that when the state start regulating, the governor of the state will speak with the regulators and say, okay, the cost of this thing is X. However, X is too high for my citizens. So I want them to pay X over 2. But they will provide the financing for that.
I have McDon on X. So he says, I live in Lugbe FCT.
Yes.
We do not have light up to 10 hours daily. But I bought light last night and was charged as a Band A customer. Why is our government policies all anti-people? This is just one of several.
Okay, so I think on the issue of AEDC, we have noted as a commission and we have directed them. So as I mentioned to you, prior to yesterday, AEDC had 223 feeders that they call Band A feeders, okay, in the old classification, right? When we did our own analysis of people that are getting the service, less than half of that, just about 100, were getting service. In our order of yesterday, if you go and look at the order is explicit that there are only 100 feeders that should be migrated to this Band A at this new tariff. Unfortunately, there was a communication gap within AEDC whereby they just migrated all their previous Band A customers.
How do we know it's a communication gap and not deliberate?
No, so the thing is, I mean, I react to the information that we get formally at the commission.
Can they get their money back? I want to get...
So they are going to, so the customers that are vended, so they are going to create a list of the customers that are vended that were wrongly classified yesterday, and then those customers would then be given the energy to reflect their own
let them make
tariff
some
that should
noise.
be.
So quick ones, number one. So why do we have to have this categorization in the first place? Are we not all supposed to just have this power supply?
So actually, the funny thing is that the service-based tariff is a derivative of customer yearnings. In 2020, and this ties to your point earlier around consultation, in 2020, which was the first time the tariffs were going to be reviewed in 4 years. So between 2016 and 2019, no tariff reviews for a different reason, and I won't get to that now. The commission went to all 11 discos. I believe we went to about 13 or 15 states. When we held consultations, customers will come. We'll say, okay, we are looking to review tariffs. What are your key considerations in the tariff review and so on and so forth? The underlying theme that emerged from that was customers said, I'm willing to pay the right price if I get the service. That's why service-based tariff was born. Because we then said service-based tariff will be that the cost-effective tariff will be payable by the customers that are getting the right quality of service.
We need to...
And then the ones that are not will be, government can continue to support them to the best of government ability.
We keep talking about me. We have crude, but Nigerians have to go through a hard time to get petrol. We have gas abundantly in this country. Even the one we get now is even associated gas, for instance. It's not the one that they deliberately go for. Yet, we have to be subject to the vagaries of all of this increasing gas here. Countries who don't even have a natural resource seem to be happier than we that have these natural resources. So now that this has been done and taken immediate effect, has subsidy been removed in the sector?
No, subsidy has not been removed. What has happened is, as our press release made clear, the subsidy for this year has been reduced by a factor or to a value of 1.14 trillion.
And we're paying this over hundreds of percentage increase. Subsidy has still not been removed.
You have to realize.
How much was it before?
The subsidy?
Yes.
The going rate of based on the January order.
How much was it before?
It was 240 billion a month.
Okay, 240 billion for January.
Yes.
Okay, now it's 1.something trillion for the year.
So now I think the number has been reduced to about 113 or so per month.
Okay.
So more than 50% reduction.
Okay.
Well,
I think the government, I think just to highlight, right? The government said reduce subsidy by this amount, but they were very clear to us. You have to make it a pro-poor reduction, which is why the tariff review is actually focused on Band A. The remaining 5% of customers, so that's about 9.something million or 10.2 million, sorry if I'm not mistaken.
The ones who say they can...
Those are the vulnerable.
The people who say they can
protected.
The people who say they can pay if they see the price are the ones. Now, you must pay for this thing much more than, you want to pay. So that's what's going on at the moment. But we have to anchor at this point. Yusuf Ali, Dr. Yusuf Ali is the Commissioner, Planning, Research and Strategy for NERC. We thank you for coming, and I know that this is not going to be the last of this matter. Several people will be on and on about this because they have to cough out the money. You know how that feels. All right. Thank you for coming on. So let's go on now. Business is on the hour now.
Yo,
You're very correct, Chamberlain. Many people have been speaking up against this latest electricity tariff hike, even those in the Band A. Mostly the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, labor unions have been talking about the impact this could have on their businesses, on their operations, and we'll delve into all of that. Not just here, Business Money, but also Business Incorporated and our subsequent bulletins. But let's start from the global space right here on Business Morning. Global space, we see oil prices rose on Thursday on concerns of lower supply as major producers are keeping output cuts in place and on signs of stronger economic growth in the United States. And, United States is the biggest oil consumer. Brent futures for June, that's what we're looking at now. These are futures, the contracts are done ahead. So these are the prices for June contract. Brent is at 89, really close to 90. We haven't seen this. These are record highs, and we know some of those factors driving it. $89.66 a barrel after it gained 0.4%. WTI, $85.73 a barrel after it also gained 0.4%. We know that the war going on in Ukraine is a major one because we've seen Ukraine hitting Russian refinery and oil facilities. So that has put a lid on supply. We've also seen the retaliation of promise of revenge by Iran, talking about what's going on in the Middle East. This has also done that. And then yesterday there was that meeting by OPEC Plus, and they agreed to keep that policy, supply cuts policy on. And so that means that for the rest of this quarter, at least, OPEC Plus members will continue that voluntary cut on supply. These have squeezed the price, and we're seeing like almost unprecedented numbers, especially for Brent, almost $90 right there. And still staying here in Nigeria, we look at the Naira. At least we have one thing to smile about, even if it's not a wide smile. We see that NAFEX yesterday appreciated again, went up, gained 1.23%. That's about $1.99 to close at 1,262 naira 85. We're still making progress 2 weeks after, while NAFEX, the Naira, closed at 1,276 naira 59 after it gained 1.27%. Now, one thing to note with these numbers is that the gap between NAFEX and NAFEM is getting closer. Sometimes we see a huge gap, more than maybe almost 1% in between both of them. We'll see this closer, and it's even closer when we look at the parallel market. But, I mean, we'll stick to the official market. So this is still good news for Nigerians and the Naira, even though we are not there yet, because we need to do below 1,000 before we can even think of heaving a sigh of relief. Now, still connected to this, one of the methods that the CBN is using is the auctions in the market. Yesterday, there was an auction, and we see the results right there. We saw that there was, that's in the fixed income market. Now, for the auction date was yesterday, 97-day, 188-day, and 363-day, and we saw a lot of activities right there. And we see that the yields, the rate is also increasing, even though, especially for the Treasury bill, for the bonds, beg your pardon, Treasury bills is increasing. I think it's about 21%, but for the bonds, it's still about 19%. I think Will talked about the calendar yesterday. We'll get more of this during Business Incorporated during the market segment. And then we look at the activity climate, business activity climate for the country. We see that it's steadied in March, but a record increase in selling prices. Talking about inflation, according to latest Purchasing Managers Index, that's the PMI, reported by Stanbic IBTC. So let's look at some of the high points of that. PMI was unchanged at 51. 51 indicates that we're on a growing path, but it was unchanged for March, from February to March. The fact that we are above 50 is positive. Purchase costs and output prices rose at sharpest rates. When we say inflation, this is what it means. So reading shows slight improvement in business conditions. Thank God for that. And then the rate of expansion in business activity takes higher, but steep prices acted as a limit on demand. It shows activity in each of agriculture, manufacturing, wholesale, and retail, as well as services. So it's a steady one. We could do better, but at least we're not going down. But of course, the price of cost and supplies is and doing business does not look encouraging at all. And now to that conversation that Sunrise Daily was having before they came over to the business studio. The electricity tariff, of course, I'm sure by now everybody knows the number by heart. 225 naira, that's what it will cost per kilowatt for consumers within band A. Now let's look at those who are within band A. If we don't already have that. 4 hours of supply, at least 4 hours of supply, that means 4 hours and more, if we could have that slide right there. 4 hours and more of supply places consumers at the lowest strategy, which is band E. Those are the people who have the list of supply. And then for band D, it's 8 hours and above. And then band C, we have 12 hours and above. Well, those involved right now will be the 20 hours and above. And somebody was asking if really we have consumers who have more than 20 hours of electricity supply. Well, let's look at other aspects. I know that Sunrise Daily did speak right there from the NERC perspective. Let's talk from the metering perspective now, because that's also a major one. We have the Vice President of Nigeria Society of Engineers, Engineer Dimola Agoro, joins us in the studio. Engineer, good morning, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
So everybody has heard about the hike in electricity. Before then, I think we were prepared when they told us about the adjustment in the price of gas.
Okay.
And then that we should prepare our minds. And before we even got our breath, we saw this has come. How necessary do you think this hike has come? Because the manufacturers are talking, and you don't blame them when you see how much they will have to pay, you know, for electricity. That's if it to be 24 hours, I guess it might even be cheaper, but they will still have to substitute with other logistics involved. So would you say this action is necessary at this time, being a stakeholder in the electricity chain?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As a manufacturer, I will tell you that this action is necessary because what the government, the regulator has done is to move us to the cost-effective tariff. You know, the way the electricity sector is built in Nigeria today, you have the generation, the transmission, and the distribution. You know, the generation is the one, they are the people that are actually needing the gas. Most of our generating capacity in Nigeria today, 80% is on gas, 20% is on the hydro. What is really happening is that when the generator generates their electricity, the actual money is the distributor that is collecting the money. But the actual money that the distribution companies are paying the generation company is being subsidized by the government because they cannot generate enough money. And there are some different things that can cause that. The major thing now that the distributor had told the government was that, oh, the price is not a cost-effective tariff. So that is why the regulator, what they did now is that, okay, we are going, because of the cost of gas that has increased, they agree with the distributor, okay, this is the cost for kilowatt of energy, based on the fact that you are going to look at all the dynamics that are involved. But the only thing there now is that I don't have a problem with the saying that if you have 20, 24 hours, you are going to pay a cost-effective tariff. But the major issue is the Consumer Protection Council. As it is now today, regulator have the capacity to know, you know, they said that they downgraded some feeder. But where they said that they have about 3,000 feeders in Nigeria, about 500 of them have been downgraded from band A to band B or thereabout. The truth now is that how does a consumer reflect to know that, oh, I'm on a band A, and I'm actually having more than 20 hours of supply. So the regulator needs to do more, because to be honest with you, there's no way this our power sector can grow without a cost-reflective tariff. But to protect the consumer, there must be, if this pressure will actually be on the disco, there must be adequate sanction. This is not an issue that say, oh, I hear them saying that they are going to, if you don't meet up this month, they are going to give you back the credit. That will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem is full transparency. There must be, I heard NERC saying that you can actually know with your account number, you can know the band that you have.
Yes, they said that on your, if you're prepaid, yes, on your card, it's supposed to be indicated there, the band that you belong to.
That is fantastic. But the issue here is that...
But do you know for sure the band that you belong to?
Yes, I know.
How?
Because I know through different, because, you know, I'm a professional and I'm a meter manufacturer. I knew that even in the meter that we produce today, there's a code that will give to you, to a customer. If you type that code on your meter, it will tell you in a month, this is the number of energy that you have, and then they publish it. You know, what NERC is saying is that they are going to publish those.
I mean, because you are in the industry, so it's easy for you to go through all of this.
Yes.
Consumers should be able, I should confidently say, oh, I'm in band A or band B, you know, and that will determine how much I'm paying.
That's what NERC is saying is going to happen now. If you heard Commissioner Yusuf saying that they have in their website that they're going to start from today, that once you type your meter number, you can actually know the band that you are. But my major challenge, it should go beyond that. Because my challenge there is that once a customer, they should invest in the facilities that put pressure on the disco to be sure that if you're actually saying that you are going to collect money for 20 hours and above, if you don't provide that 20 hours, the sanction should be more than saying that you are going to pay, because it's at the detriment of the customer. It should be more so that discourse will improve. Anybody that wants to charge somebody on band A must be ready for the business. It's not as if that, because what NERC is saying now that, okay, any disco that can provide 20 hours and above, you have the capacity to charge this. So if they don't provide it, and you are telling us that, oh, you only bleed them based on, that is not going to be fair enough. So if somebody wants to take up that responsibility as a disco, he must be ready.
To see the stated out consequences.
Yes, he must be ready to
because
invest.
I mean, we've heard so many times where government agencies will tell you, oh, they'll even for instance for flights, airlines, you know, and then maybe they said, oh, they couldn't make it, they'll refund you. Yeah. We know what happens. So when you talk of refund, actually, it's a long story. But I mean, let's also use this advantage. We have just a couple of minutes more. You are MAPS, a meter asset provider.
Yes.
We've talked about domestic manufacturing of metering, but we still hear that the major part of it is still being imported. Not to mention the circulation or metering consumers in Nigeria. It seems we have slowed down on that also. And this is supposed to be able to bring transparency to this billing.
Now, the truth is that you cannot go on this project cannot succeed without a complete metering. Any band that you are going to say you want to charge a cost-effective tariff, you have to be sure that customers on that band is going to be fully metered. That will put a pressure on the disco for the metering. The issue that when you talk about, say, look up, you know, we have more than 37 meter manufacturers in Nigeria. You can see the Honorable Minister visited two companies about some weeks ago. In terms of capacity, Nigerians, we have the capacity to meet the metering gap in the country. When you are saying that the only thing that is being imported really is the electronic part of and that's what is really affected by the cost of dollar. Most of the other parts of the meat is being produced locally, and we have capacity in-house.
Are discos patronizing domestic manufacturers?
Yes, discos are, most of the discos are patronizing domestic manufacturers. That the meter access provider is actually based for investors that are supposed to buy either from domestic manufacturer or to import. But with some of the policies that governments have put in place that make it very even difficult for people to import meter because of the levy. So the only thing that the only thing that we're saying is that the government just needs to do more to encourage the local meter manufacturers.
More in what
in
area?
Terms of believe in investing. You know, when you want to reduce a cost, it's based on the volume. Most of the things we do now is that, you know, it's individuals that are paying for the meter. So if you pay, I will deliver. But if the government says, oh, company A, go and deliver 100,000 meter to close this missing gap, it automatically brings down the volume. Bring down the prices and everything. And we can, meters, you know, we have the NERC that is in charge of the regulating the quality of the meter. But the major challenge that I think that I must say here, the government must put, this issue of band-aid that people are talking about is not even the problem. You know, when discourse are sold, discourse are supposed to reduce the ATC and C losses. There must be transparency. If you are saying a generator generates 100 kilowatts, what does it end up in the disco premises? If by the end of the day, it ends up at 60 kilowatts between the generation and the transmission, who bear those losses? Those are the things that discourse must invest in. And as a user, it's not even about the price. It's about the energy management. You can decide if they are saying something is this cost per hour. It depends on, because hour is measured in kilowatt hour. It's either you use it or you don't use it. And you may decide to opt and use it when you really need it.
All right, Engineer, I think we'll have to bring you in another day. Vice President of Nigeria Society of Engineers, Managing Director, CEO, Protege Global Services, and also MAPS, Meter Assets Provider.
Thank you.
We'll certainly have you one of these days to talk more about the meters and,
no problem.
and all of that.
No problem. Thank you.
All
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll head to the commodities space to stay with us.
What? Now this is more like it, right? We want the best quality ingredients when we cook. But when it comes to salt, we care less. We say salt is salt. Well, I care about my salt. It goes into my food and my body. So I use Dangote salt.
Dangote salt is high-quality salt that is refined and iodized
to give great taste to my meals and also to support my family's health and well-being. It's time to care about your salt.
Welcome back. We head to the commodity space now with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rani. Mr. Rani, good morning. And I'm sure you have a thought or two about this increase in electricity tariff.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. Yes, I have my thoughts on the electricity tariff. As an economist, the total cost is what matters. If you discount the cost of the generator, the cost of the diesel, and you put that side by side with the 225 naira per kilowatt, you will find that you are better off actually without your generator. If you're an band A, which means that you have 24 hours or 20 hours of quality supply, like those in Banana Island and so on, you find that you are better off. So it's a catch-22 situation. You cannot have if you don't get, and if you don't get, you cannot have. I think that's the time. How does it affect commodity prices, which is the most important thing we're talking about, is that if power supply to the manufacturers is guaranteed at 20 hours a day, right, and it's quality supply, then the investment in assets, which are not core assets, the gas generator, the pipelines and all of that, will not have to be made. And that will bring down the average cost and the prices of the commodities which they are producing and supplying to the market. I think that's the important thing we have to note here.
All right, and then we look at the Naira. The Naira has been gaining for, I think, it's 2 weeks every session now, every consecutive session, we see it closed flat at 1,250. That's in the parallel market. There must be something good we're doing. I hope it's not just about the CBN intervention.
No, it's not that. Actually, a couple of things you have to note. One is that the supply has been pretty average, but then because of the high interest rates, foreign portfolio investors and hot money has come into the market. You cannot rely on hot money perpetually. What we've seen is a massive appreciation of the currency, all the way from 1915 to 1250. That's about 700. But in any case, it should not have been at 1915 in the first place. It should have been somewhere much lower. Now, so what you're finding is the currency is finding its fair value because it's aligned structurally for some time. I think it's going to stabilize at about this level for some time. It's probably depreciate a little bit as people begin to see through this whole process. But what we noticed yesterday was rather than an appreciation, it stayed flat. There was an appreciation the day before. So what does this mean for commodity prices? It means that those who are importing commodities or raw materials will have a lower cost of importation. But don't forget, many of them had bought some of their raw materials when it was 1900, 1700. So they'll come down with their average cost. And you can see that begin to reflect. The price of a bag of rice has dropped to 88,000 naira, as you can see. The price of sugar, a 50 kg bag is now 80,000, and flour is at 60,000. What it does mean is that those who imported these commodities the previous month, the month before that, are now getting new money and lowering their average cost. But the interesting thing is that those who were not in the market before, who are now bringing it in at this new exchange rate, are going to compete and bring down the price further. So what I'm saying is that you will see some lowering of commodity prices in the next month. If the exchange rate stays that way, and if the interest rates stay the way they are, which means that people are saving more and consuming less, and the demand for foreign exchange should be tapering, you'll find that we will be coming towards equilibrium. We did an analysis yesterday, which showed that the fair value is now at about 980 naira to a dollar, actually 958 naira to a dollar.
So
I'm not saying to get there, but that is a benchmark which we should be looking at. And if things are normal and we get the fiscal space right, we might begin to see some appreciation, but let's not get too excited and go ahead of ourselves. Do not think that because it has appreciated for this last month or two, it's going to continue in that direction. Let's not. If not, we'll get into a crisis of false expectations.
So, Mr. Rwani, are you warning people like me who are looking forward to having the naira 700 naira of, managing our expectations, or is it with time we will get there?
No. If wishes were horses, beggars were right. The thing is that you can wish it to go to 700 or 500, but it's not going to happen. The reality is that where you have it now, hold on to it. If you can buy whatever forex you want to buy now, you can. But do not expect a miracle. It's not going to happen miraculously. It will happen because of hard work. It will happen because we are getting higher oil price, which is at about 88 or it's $7 a barrel. That's fair enough. And if we can produce without disrupting production, we may begin to see some stability in the foreign exchange market, which we have seen in the last 3 weeks. It is bound to continue, but do not expect a rapid appreciation that is going to get to 700 or 800. It's not going to get there for some time to come.
All right. So you did say that one of the factors driving this appreciation of the naira, kind of stability of the naira, is that people are saving more than they're consuming. In the long run,
yes.
Isn't that going to affect economic activities and have an adverse effect?
No, it will not have an adverse effect because whatever is saved is invested. So once savings increases, investment will increase. And when investment increases, every supply creates its own demand. So that's sales law. So those are fundamental principles of economics. So we have the paradox of thrift that if you save too much, then you end up actually hurting yourself. No. But in this country, savings equal investment. Investment will lead to increase in productivity. Productivity will increase GDP, and all of us will be happier. So it's, but you know that Keynes said in the long run we're all dead. But in the short to medium term, we will see some improvement. But one point I wanted to make also is that the price of diesel, it was coincidental that whilst we're talking about increasing the tariff, we've seen a reduction in the price of diesel to 1,225, thanks to the Dangote Group and the Dangote refinery. But again, there are bottlenecks within the system. If the grid collapses, begin to reduce because power supply is stable, then the price of diesel begins to come down because people will not demand the diesel. And there's a strong correlation between the price of diesel and inflation. Once the price of diesel begins to moderate, and we think it will come down to 1,000 naira per liter in the medium term, or maybe end of June or July, then you will see that transportation costs will begin to reduce, logistics costs begin to reduce, and people begin to feel the impact. Do not forget also that we have the minimum wage review that is coming up, which will have some inflationary impact in the short run, but it will stabilize as output increases. But that we have some interesting few weeks ahead of us.
I see that. But talking about this 1,250, which Dangote is selling, to the
1,225.
225, beg your pardon, 1,225. That's how much Dangote is selling to them. I wonder where the markup will get to, and who will manage it so that the consumers are not taken for granted in spite of the efforts of Dangote.
I'm one of those who is totally against price control. If the supply increases, if you don't need to regulate anything, the price will come down on their own once the supply increases. So we are going to see that this Dangote refinery has brought a new dimension into the diesel equation. And as long as it continues to supply, as long as it gets the crude, because that's important, he's buying crude from different places. If he gets the crude at the guaranteed cost, which is a global price, he should be able to make sure that supply is constant. And once supply is constant and increases, the prices will go down after that. And once the prices go down, then you could see that you even made a mistake of saying 1,250 because there's somehow the price of diesel and the exchange rate seem to coincidentally be moving in tandem. So let us say if the price of diesel declines, inflation declines, the exchange rate will appreciate at the same time. That's some basic principles of economics. Yeah.
All right, so well, just as you said, interesting weeks ahead, and I guess we'll just keep our eyes glued to those numbers and to economists like you. Thank you so much. The Chief Executive Officer of Financial Director.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a time out. We'll be back for closing time before Sunrise Daily.
The Dangote Petroleum Refinery is going to be the largest single-train petroleum refinery in the world. Dangote Industries have enormous confidence in the potential of Nigeria. Africa is like an unexplored gold mine. We know there is huge opportunities here.
What makes this project different than others is for sure the size. This project is transformation for the country and for the continent, I would say.
The Dangote fertilizer plant will transform the agricultural sector. We go for the state-of-the-art technology. It will help to create employment and to reduce the massive demand on foreign imports.
It's going to have great pride.
Closing moments. Now we just have just a couple of seconds to look at the numbers. The close of yesterday, all share was in the red again yesterday, 0.32% down at 104,181.32. Market cap has dropped from 59 trillion naira, we most celebrated, 58.905. The sectors was mixed, but banking down, consumers positive, industrial
slightly positive. Insurance down, losing almost all it gained last week, and oil and gas remaining in its status of unchanged. So as we always say, we'll get more markets. More market numbers will come at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated. For now, we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
That resolution, I'm implementing it. It's not a constitutional implementation. It's a political solution to a problem. And I'm doing it because of the respect I have for Mr. President. But let me say it here. If that action that I've accepted to follow will be taken for my weakness, I will surprise them.
All right, so back to Rivers politics. And so we've got two gentlemen joining us here this morning to give us their legal perspective on some of these matters as they are playing out. Richard Nwakocha is an associate professor of public law, Rivers State University, and former chairman of MBA Omuku. And then we also do have Mr. Monday Obani, former chairman, section of public interest and development, SPIDAL, and former second vice president of the MBA. They both join us this morning to give us their thoughts on what is going on. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Prof, let me start with you on this matter. Yes, we've just heard the governor talking about this agreement and that he is actually implementing it, because there's another narrative in another quarters. In fact, they interpret the State House of Assembly saying they're asking him to represent the budget, which suggests it's part of the agreement. So he's not representing the budget. They consider it tantamount to not implementing the budget, contrary to what the governor has claimed. Now, from your perspective, what is the way to go about this? I mean, if he says he's implementing it, what does the law say in the first place? Is it lawful for the governor to represent this budget to the State House of Assembly? Yeah, you can unmute, Prof.
What the law requires.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, what the law requires the governor to do at the beginning of financial year is to present budget to the assembly for approval, and when that is done, he assents to bring it into effect. Now, you will agree we have a slightly peculiar situation in Rivers State. Legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, 27 members of the Rivers State House of Assemblies voluntarily chose to leave the House, vacated their seats by doing what amounts to vacating your seat, which is leaving the party that sponsored you into the House and becoming a member of another party when there is no division in the party and when there is no merger between a faction of that party and the new party to which you have moved. All that the Constitution requires is that that action should be brought to the attention of the House, not that those who have vacated should be there, because the Constitution considers them to have vacated. And so subsection 2 of that section 109G simply says that matter should be brought to the attention of the House by the Speaker or a member of the House.
So, Prof, before you go on to the speakership position, when you say the provisions of the Constitution, but now they also say that, look, we are still members. They cited different procedures, different laws, how there was a rift. So can we assume, without probably, since there's a division on this matter, if what if they claim, look, as far as we are concerned, there is no law, no judgment that has said we are not members, and as such, we are members?
No. You see, the fact is that the Constitution does not require a court to make pronunciation. The Constitution did not say a court should be approached to make pronunciation. The heading of that section 109 is vacation of seat of members. So you vacate your seat. And the Constitution simply says, under subsection 2, that when any of the items, not just defection, all of the other items that are listed under section 9, when any of them happens, it should be brought to the attention of the House. And the procedure does not require that the person should be present or that the person should defend himself and all of that. It's simply to bring that fact to the attention of the House, and then those seats will be declared vacant. Never the INEC do the needful. Now, for the issue of yes.
Go ahead.
You are saying something?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about that speakership position.
Good, good. Now, for the issue of speakership, I have found two objections raised by those who have tended to say that the position is the way you are saying that they are presuming. The Constitution itself provides that the quorum of the House shall be 1/3 of members. But Section 102 further provides that the House shall act notwithstanding any vacancy in the House. And so if 27 members have defected, the question is, can the House still sit? The answer is yes.
Can you sit without the quorum?
The quorum will no longer be required, because if 27 members die, the House will not be dissolved. If 27 members resign, the House will not be dissolved. Vacating your seats by changing party in that circumstance is equal to resignation. The House does not get dissolved. So the question is, can the House sit? And Section 102 of the Constitution says yes, the House shall sit, can sit and can act, notwithstanding any vacancy. Any vacancy includes any vacancy, notwithstanding the number, notwithstanding who and who have vacated.
So just talk about this.
Now for the speakership.
Yes.
For the speakership, you are asking of the speakership. You need to advert your mind to Section 95, subsection 2 of the Constitution. The Speaker is the officer who presides at the sitting of the House. And that provision talks of presiding at the sitting of the House. And it says, in the absence of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, who should preside in the absence of the Speaker. Subsection 2 says, in the absence of both of them, such member as the members of the House elect for the purpose shall preside. So if there are only 5 members left in the House or 4 members left in the House, and they elect any of them for the purpose of that sitting, he is Speaker and exercises the full powers of the Speaker.
Okay,
so I'm not thinking. I am citing Section 95, Section 2 of the Constitution.
All right, let me ask you. I'm trying to ask so I can bring in Mr. Bani. So concerning this speakership position, now you also do know that there are procedure and processes. Even if a speaker has to preside and sit, no matter the circumstance, he has to be elected, at least, to be so designated. And you know what you say in law, that look, if you abuse that process, it can invalidate the entire outcome. So in this case, the other lawmakers claim, and they say valid, that look, who elected him speaker? At what point? He cannot be said to be a speaker when there was no such procedure whatsoever.
Now, all that Section 95, Section 2 requires is that as they are seated, if the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are not present, the members present shall elect any of them to preside over that meeting for that purpose.
I understand
so the
that.
Constitution does not require that those who have vacated their seats.
No, I understand that point. The question I'm asking
conducted.
is, even amongst those who were sitting while the other members were not there, they said there was no election, there was no time that he was elected as Speaker.
So how did the House sit? How did the person who presided preside? Did the others not agree to his presiding?
No,
because that is all that is required.
So that's what they're claiming. They're saying that, look, there is no proceedings, there's no record, there's no documentation whatsoever that he was elected, that he just proclaimed himself, and then everybody ran with it.
If those who are present with him agreed that he should preside, they have nominated or elected him to preside. Okay. The Constitution says for the purpose.
Okay.
It's not that you must hold an election, call somebody to take record and all that. No. It's a question of being nominated and the rest of the members present agreeing. That is subsection 2 of section 95.
Okay. Well, here
it is what happens in the absence of the elected speaker. And,
yeah, just as I said, I mean, they were saying there was no sitting whatsoever, that he proclaimed himself, that if anybody claims otherwise, show the public those details. But we'll hear you, though. Let's bring in Ms. Ubani and get his perspective. Ms. Ubani, you've heard Professor Richard Wankocha's perspective on this particular matter. What do you think of it? Okay, we can't seem to hear Mr. Bani on this particular matter. So, but Prof, so now about this agreement. Okay, I think Bani is still okay. I hear her saying true. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you hearing me? I'm hearing you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a network interruption, but I know what you want to ask me. I'll try as much as possible, Kimberly, to be very non-partisan in my objective analysis I want to make concerning this particular matter. I want to say this, that if you follow the issue of law and constitutional provision in order to resolve the problem in Rivers, we may not have a solution to that particular crisis that have lingered for some time. My solution is that let us go to where both of them went to Aso Rock in order to meet the president, who felt totally embarrassed that his minister that he had appointed is having a problem with his godson in the Rivers State, and invited them to come to Aso Rock. And when they went to Aso Rock, they all sat down. And I'm sure the president must have asked them, what is the issue? And they must have explained. After which there was an agreement that was drawn up. Part of that agreement is, look, you want to impeach this man. Please, can you suspend any impeachment proceeding against the incumbent governor? There shouldn't be any impeachment. Now, Governor, please go back and present the budget that you said has been passed to the House, and let that budget be passed anew. And so they all agreed. And I remember I heard the governor say, look, he's going to do anything humanly possible in order to allow peace to reign in Rivers State. Even though he was blamed, some people were calling him names at that point. But the man says, I'm going to do anything that is humanly possible to allow peace to reign. Now, we are back to that agreement that was reached in Aso Rock. I don't want to know what happened between him and his godfather. They have not told us what the problem is anyway. But the point is that we are looking for a solution now. The people of Rivers want good governance, and we must make a way forward. So they reach an agreement in Aso Rock. What are the terms of that agreement? Are they complying with the terms of that agreement?
Mr. Bani.
I don't want to go into constitutional provision and into legality and order of the action, because if you do that, we run into a problem.
Mr. Bani, can you hear me? So let's talk about that agreement, because that's where the crux of the matter is. There are basic things on the agreement that both sides believe are not being adhered to. Now, I understand where you're coming from when you say you don't want to go through the constitutionality and all of that, because we'll run into a lot of trouble. Let's see if we can solve this between parties that are having issues. Ultimately, what can be done? Because they seem to have reached a point in the implementation of these agreements that they made with President Tinubu that they can't go any further. They are at a crossroad right now where no side is willing to budge. So we're back to the same situation that necessitated this agreement. What can be done? Should they have another meeting with the president? What solutions can be reached here? Because they're at a point where no one is moving anywhere.
And I'm sure that the president himself will be totally disappointed because he made a very stringent effort in order to ensure that this matter is resolved. And when they all came out, those of us, heaved a sigh of relief and say, oh, this matter has actually, been handled, and then there will be absolute peace, and then good governance will go on. Because nobody is actually happy what is going on in Rivers State. Wike himself, when he was the governor there, did a lot of things in order to really move the system. And one would have thought that his successor will also continue to toe that same line. But what we have been hearing now about Rivers is just crisis and threat of impeachment. And so I think that the president himself now is totally disappointed. So what I'm saying is that, what are the agreement? What did they agree? They agreed not to impeach him. And so nobody should even threaten him. It's even wrong to even begin to threaten a man that is elected. But the point is, was there any agreement that this particular budget, allegedly passed, should be represented to the House? And if it is this, why is the governor afraid of representing? Because they are not going to deny him the budget. They couldn't deny passing the budget. I think there is the issue of ego and the issue of advisors now trying to come in between the house. Oh, there was no house. There was no, these guys are not, properly members of the house anymore. Don't represent. And that is issue of ego now trying to stall the process.
But those are pertinent issues, Mr. Obani, don't you think? Those are pertinent issues. We heard Prof talking about that just now.
Issues. Yes, so what I'm saying, if they agree that they should go and represent the budget, what's stopping from, because they will not stop him, they will not stop that budget being passed. They will not stop the budget of the governor being passed. So if he say, go and represent, so what is stopping him from representing? Well, I think that they should bury their ego. They should bury their differences, and look at the people, the helpless people in Rivers who are looking and yearning for good governance, and I try as much as possible to avoid the lingering crisis. It's unnecessary. The president, I'm sure, now is disappointed because he thought he has resolved the issue for them. But we are still going back and forth. So what is it? Go and represent the budget and then move on. Let them pass your budget and then you move on. That's my take. I'm not looking at constitutional provision because if we do, we're not going to make any progress. We won't make an inch of progress in the River State. So I'm thinking that since there was an agreement, the president came in and intervened, and there were terms of agreement that was reached and all that. Go back and implement it and all that. Everyone should share the sword and allow peace to reign and let there be good governance in River State. That's my take. I don't know what others are thinking.
I don't
but
know,
if they stick to constitutional provision,
Wokocha,
they will be able to move an inch, and everyone will still.
Yes, I want you to get Professor Wokocha, because right now, we're trying to look at those 8 agreements that were reached between both parties when they went to see President Tinubu. You just heard Mr. Obani talking about, look, let's forget about the constitutional provisions. Can we focus on how to get some kind of solution? What do you make of that assertion, Mr. Prof?
While I very much share the desire for peace to reign, I have very strong fears that the very reason why in the first place constitutions are created and exercise of public powers are committed to the constitutions and constitutional provisions is because you cannot trust humanity. We have our frailties. And if you look at the actors in this particular crisis, I am sure you will know that you cannot have a reasonable peace, because for quite a number of those actors, if it doesn't go exactly the way they want, whether that way they want is in accord with the what is called the presidential directive. I did not see the president's signature on that paper. But if it does not correspond with exactly what they want, they will not give in. You saw that after the signing of that paper, statements were being made, inciting statements and statements of all manner were being made that you would have considered, any reasonable person would have considered inconsistent with the environment of after presidential intervention.
Yeah, but Prof,
so if you leave these matters,
if I could just jump in at that point, the thing about this is this. I mean, we saw part of all those lists the highlights of the agreement that they are said to have reached.
Yes.
And the governor himself said, look, that agreement, it was in good faith. He's just respecting the president by adhering to them. That if they push him, he will surprise them, meaning he's implementing. And at least he's considered willing to let sleeping dogs lie so that there'll be peace. But if the State Assembly, part of the condition too is that drop impeachment proceedings and then represent the budget. So they're saying, look, we're bringing back impeachment proceedings because he's not representing the budget. So how then do you solve this kind of matter? Okay. We seem to have lost Prof. Is frozen there, but I understand. That's NERC.
But the question is, do they have the power to do it? When they start and the other party reacts?
Oh dear. Yeah, the challenge is just it's pretty unstable, the network at this point in time. So we'll see him, but we can't seem to make clear what Prof is saying at this point. Prof, let's try again and see if it will be clearer this time.
Okay, sorry, there was an intervening call which is stopped. So I was saying, when you issue those threats or such threats, if the other party reacts, are you sure you retain capacity to maintain that struggle? Because if you watch the language of that agreement, it said recognize them as members of the House of Assembly. It did not validate their position. It did not say it is overruling the Constitution. It simply asked the governor to continue to recognize them, restore their salaries that had been stopped, etc., etc. So if you want to carry out that threat and the other party reacts, are you sure you have the capacity to carry through the threat you are issuing? Because you are being recognized as the agreement advised. So I think that is where the danger lies when we have to deal with what individuals think and individual wisdom from public matters. All over the world, this is the only country where I see where issues that are spelled out in the Constitution are committed to wisdom of the leaders. No, it doesn't happen. There is no room. There is no.
Who would quickly remind you that we probably have had a similar thing even in this Fourth Republic. One instance in that regard is the doctrine of necessity. There are those who are wondering, hey, why do we need the doctrine of necessity if we had a vice president in office and we know standard practice? When the president is not around, it is the vice president, even though there is supposed to be a letter. And the circumstances around his unavailability at the time was known to everyone. So that kind of thing has happened before. Sometimes it will seem like politics take precedence over the Constitution. How do we amend those things for the sake of posterity?
Well, what I've always...
Is the question directed to me?
For Prof, for a few seconds, for a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, Mr. Obani, you would also be able to weigh in before we close. Go ahead, Prof.
Okay, yeah. So I think the major problem is the reason why things are committed to rules is to avoid the frailty of humanity. This is the only country where the rule says one thing and we resort to something else. You saw it during the acting presidency, before acting presidency was included in the Constitution. It was absolutely unnecessary. There were provisions for what should happen if the president becomes incapacitated. We chose to invent a doctrine of necessity over what was written in the law. We are having these headaches because we are not following the law. My position is always work with the law. There is a reason why the law makes provisions for how public power should be exercised. Let
me take that same question to Mr. Obani. Well, Mr. Obani, there is that position of Prof. Wokocha, and then there is also the position of politics. What is your own position in that regard?
The point is that we have, there are certain things we don't need to say. The man, Fubara himself, we all know the circumstances under which he was elected. It was Wike that brought him, and Wike, I don't know what they agreed, before he was brought in as a governor. Well, while APC won at the presidential election, the PDP
kind of
won
thing,
at the...
Mr. Obani, my apologies for butting in. That kind of thing shouldn't happen in a free democracy. In a situation where people have a choice of how to elect their leaders, that kind of thing should not happen. And if this is the kind of thing that continues to happen, then why have a constitution that we can't follow?
Allow me now to finish. I'm going somewhere. I'm not saying that things are not normal in this country. You know it. There's a systemic problem. So he came. I don't know what both of them agreed on. Now, within a short time, they broke out that there is war between both of them that led to the issue of impeachment threat. And before the president said, look, I don't want this kind of a thing to happen because the president made him his minister and all that. So he will want peace in the place where he was the former governor. He intervened. And they all agreed. I don't know what, as I speak to you, Fubara and Wike has not told the world what is actually their problem. What is even the cause of what is playing out? Things are not normal. And when things are not normal, then you use an abnormal way to stop the problem. So the president intervened, and they all reached an agreement. And my take is this. If you have agreed to those terms, which even Fubara alluded to yesterday, that he is implementing those terms, what stopped you from implementing this one that say represent the budget? Is it not part of the terms? So that's my take in all. Look, I think we can find a solution to this problem.
All right, Mr. Mondobani, we do hear you. He's a former chairman, SPEDEL, that section of public interest and development, as well as former second vice president of the NBA. We've also had the pleasure of speaking with Richard Nwakocha, who is an associate professor of public law university, Rivers State University. Thank you, gentlemen, for your perspectives here today. Just before we go, let's take some quick look at some of the messages that have been sent in about this power tariff increase. Quite a number of people have written in, so shall we have the very first ones who are talking about what their experience is about the electricity tariff hike. Several persons have spoken to us here. So this is from Abayemi, who says, can this government define the word cushion? Okay, so, all right, we hear you.
He says he wants some kind of explanation. When they say cushion, can they explain to us what they mean when they say cushion, So that message there from Abayomi Ogundo.
Yeah, this is from Prince Isaac.
Okay, so Prince Isaac, Prince Ajibade Isaac, I live in Apori Settlement. According to AEDC Electricity, we are on band A, but I can tell you that I can't remember the last time we had light for 16 hours in a day. I bought 10,000 naira tariff yesterday, and what I got was less than 48 units. And I think that's a story that a lot of other people are dealing with right now. I'm seeing this one here from Akeredolu. Ayo.
That by Akeredolu is also interesting. It says power supply has improved in my area by up to 38 hours. We only have 24 hours in a day. Okay, most days the supply is 16 to 24 hours. However, the tariff rose from 53 naira 78 to 82 naira 20 per unit yesterday. That's from Akeredolu.
Well, okay, you're rubbing it in, so Ayo gets your message. And then Savannah says, it's very disappointing that a 300% increase is termed a minor review. On the one hand, government is saying dollar and diesel costs have dropped. In another breath, we're being told the cost for power distribution has increased. What a country. All right, we do hear you all, and I appreciate your feedback, so do keep them coming through. Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Have a wonderful day ahead of you. And make sure you stay safe. Be careful how you live today. Take it easy. Everything's going to be all right. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Akeredolu. Have a wonderful and productive day.